So this is a new endeavor for us. We're going to Van Meter, Iowa, and we're going to be learning a little bit about the creature that was spotted there in 1903, which is today known as the Mothman. So I'm pretty, I don't know. I've always been fascinated about the unknown out there, such as the Mothman, werewolves, etc. So I'm looking forward to this, and it'll be a good experience for all of us.
All right, so Paranormal Endeavors had received an email regarding a mysterious creature not too far from here, actually. And I've heard about this creature before in the past. I haven't got a chance to get out there before. No one on my team has, to my knowledge, until now. So we're going to go there and explore this, the mysteries of this creature, where it might have lived, what it might have done, and if there's any sightings of it since almost a century ago. Hello.
Hi. How are you guys?
Doing all right. My name's Eric. I'm Paranormal Endeavors team lead.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. This is Jackie. We're researchers. We stumbled across. We got an email actually about this event, and we do a majority of the stuff that we do, like paranormal research, has to do with like types of hauntings and ghostly things, but we're open to all kinds of paranormal phenomenon.
Right.
And this creature of 1903 we were fascinating in. If you want to give us a little information on that.
Sure. I'm Jolena from the Van Meter Public Library, and when I first heard about the Van Meter visitor was from the 1903. They were giving information on this at the Centennial. And 1903, there was quite a bit of business in Van Meter. The town is about the same size, but there was a lot more business going on. And over 5 nights about this time of the year in September, 110 years ago, it started with the hardware owner running into what he didn't realize that night was the monster or the creature. And then as it went over the next 5 nights, it was a bank owner, a superintendent, just different people of prominent positions that all tried to take shots at it. In the beginning, they weren't believed. Then the bank worker or cashier is the one that I believe took a footprint of it, and it had like 3 toes, and then all of them were describing it to look the same way. It was, like I said, similar in this picture. It had the horn on its head, the light, about 8 foot tall. And one of them described it could hop away and jump like a kangaroo, had wings. So it really was terrorizing the town that week. And then toward the end of the week, when they got everyone together, they went up by the old mine, which is up by the brick and tile plant here west of Van Meter. And essentially, as Chad puts in the book, they had enough ammunition to sink the Spanish fleet, and they still couldn't hit it. And there was also a little one that had come up that looked like a smaller version. So whether it was just a younger one, they don't know. But after they had scared it, what sounded like was back down into the mine, that was covered up then. And that's what had happened.
So besides the 1903 experience, have anybody experienced anything today, or is it just...
There haven't been any sightings of the actual visitor. But what we've had kids that have been out there, obviously that's a road that kids have parties on, and they have heard bricks, things like that, sounds like they're being thrown in the tile plant. Even people that have been out near there, or the owner said, he told Chad, he just feels really uneasy when he's there. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's amazing with as much as he farms, that is still left exactly the old tile plant the way it is. Now where that mine was is completely grown over. So, but no, except for noises, and then some thought they heard other noises. We haven't had sightings.
What this reminds me of is the Point Pleasant, Virginia location, the famous Mothman.
Right.
And it kind of reminds me of that, where that terror came in the 1960s and then just kind of disappeared.
Right. And that is also described in the book, because they're relating it to different things that it's similar to. The Mothman, some of it's similar to the Jersey Devil. Mm-hmm. I mean, but that's one thing we don't know. I mean, if there truly was a visitor monster and they chased it in there, I mean, that mine's been shut up, so we don't know. I personally, and they asked me, I don't live that far from there, and it gives me creepy feelings out there, and I don't go up on to where it's the private property, but
Just being around there.
yeah.
Do you know of any, because this goes back years and years and years ago, but with that sighting and any kind of extraterrestrial or anything like that, the men in black sometimes show up and make their presences known following that. Any reports, even back in 1903, of men in black showing up?
No, not that we're aware of.
Okay.
So, and Chad and Noah and Kevin did a lot of research. I mean, I was amazed how much this was in the news back then in newspapers in 1903, but nothing like that. Just this first full week of terror.
Any direct fatalities or deaths caused by the creature? Or
No.
No? Okay.
And when you read the book, or you talk about it, which is amazing, because I would think that if it was going to hurt someone, it had plenty of opportunity to do so.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, thanks for taking the time to talk with us
You bet.
and indulge us on this.
Thank you.
Can't wait till the tour tonight to show some of where this location
That's
where it
awesome.
was. So.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, my name's Eric Klein with Paranormal Endeavors.
Eric, nice to meet you.
Nice
Noah
to meet
Voss.
you. All right. So you're one of the authors in the book about this creature.
Yes.
Tell a little bit about yourself and some of the, I guess, lack of a better term, endeavors that you come across researching this and what some of your goals are.
Yeah, the book, The Van Meter Visitor, that I co-authored with Kevin and Chad, was just a great case that we came across in old newspaper articles and found it interesting because we find odd things interesting, and we love a good mystery and an unexplained mystery at that. So we started to dig more and more, and found some more and more data that made it even more interesting case. And that's usually not the situation with our research. A lot of times we start looking into an unexplained case and kind of falls apart where some things just don't add up or there's not enough information about it, especially historical cases. In my experience, that's what I found. So yeah, we started looking into it more and more. We had more and more research, more and more data, and more information to talk about, so we piled it into a book.
Okay. When did you first hear about this creature?
The Van Meter Visitor probably a few years, 2 years ago now, I guess.
Fairly
it's
recent.
been. Yeah,
Okay.
it's very recent, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
That's a good question. I should really know when I first heard about it. It's what, 2013, probably 2011-ish?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
probably around then. I think we had been doing some research for a trip that the three of us were going to be on, coming through the state, doing some research for several endeavors, I guess, basically, that we're working on. And this was one of the things out of dozens that we were looking into, and it was probably around 2011 or so when we were doing that. Yeah.
Okay.
The
So is
book
this
just
kind of
came out.
common where you go about with different creatures or possible paranormal events? You don't call yourself a paranormal investigator per se, but you worded it as, what do you refer yourself as?
I wear so many hats, I guess. Well, I've called whatever anybody wants to call me, that's fine. I've written a UFO book, so
Okay.
I wear the ufologist hat. I wrote a generic mystery, enigmas, mysterious disappearances, bizarre happenstance book for a large city that I lived near in Madison, Wisconsin. So then, I'm just a researcher. And, I was first in the world to create an online ghost hunting store, getghostgear.com.
Okay.
And so at that point, I was a ghost hunter. Although back when I started that store, that online store, I geared it towards those who were more scientifically inclined to investigate paranormal reported phenomena. So at that point, I guess I was a paranormal investigator. Now I'm just author, lecturer, hey you, Mr. Hopefully Not Sir.
That's all right. I'm a hey you sometimes too. But yeah, so with this creature then, you're estimating in there kind of, but no one really knows for certain, I guess, the size of this creature. Someone said 8 feet. What would you say?
Yeah, the visitor, according to one of the reports that we have from an eyewitness, they estimated it to be at least 8 feet tall when it stood fully. And that was after that particular witness came out of his house and approached it as it was descending a telegraph pole or telephone pole. So he was fairly close to it and got a very good look at it from where it was perched on top, descended using its beak kind of as a hand like a parrot would. It hit the ground and then stood up, and that's when he said, wow, this is big. It's not a normal bird. It's at least 8 feet. It extended its wings, and at that point actually the fast mail, which would be a train at that time, came through town and almost seemed to startle it, where it cowered or crouched down. And as the train continued to pass, the visitor, as it's been coined, kind of lunged like a kangaroo using its wings kind of in leaps and bounds. So this particular witness, if taken at face value, which we have to do 110 years later, said it got a very good look at it for a very long time in several different, in a perched position, in a climbing position, in a crouched position, in a running away position. So that's pretty good time to estimate the size of at least 8 feet.
Okay. And it was shot at, but it didn't seem like it was killed by its shot, so it kind of maybe had some kind of maybe healing properties or immune to that kind of method. But in return, it didn't really kill or harm anybody other than maybe that you were saying something about some kind of a bright white light from its head, stunning people. What else do you know about that?
Well, you're right. I mean, I think you're onto something there with it had very defensive maybe capabilities where it was not offensively going out that we know of, attacking people or attacking your livestock.
Eating them or, yeah.
Right. Even though it was shot at night after night after night, usually several shots, many times at close range. At least once we know with a shotgun full of buckshot, so that's widens your target if you're not familiar with buckshot or weapons. At close range, it's very difficult to miss. So if you start looking at the fact that, it's been shot at, very likely hit, and didn't seem to be affected, other than it was aware of it, because at least one of the cases, when it was shot at, it seemed to awaken it up. The light emanated from it at that moment, and then as well as this gas was present, or this, what the witness said was this strong scent, strong smell, that almost seemed to stupefy him. Very interesting.
And that's interesting for us from a paranormal standpoint. When we're working on our cases and we try to fit them into profiles and whatnot, to me, hearing that sounds like this creature may have had even human-type feelings, maybe, or emotions to it, a creature of passion, or compassion at least, because it could have easily, unless it's, for what we know now, at least, it could have easily have retaliated back and killed people and stuff like that.
Seems
so
like it. Right, yeah. The average height of a man in Van Meter in 1903 was well under 6 feet, and this thing's 8 feet tall, huge bat-like wings. One could presume perhaps talons and the ability to not be harmed by bullets. I would think, yes, that it'd have some sort of sentient ability where it would have that emotional tie to turn the other cheek, if it had cheeks.
Yeah. And then the other thing, because it's commonly compared to Mothman and Point Pleasant, with that phenomenon and a lot of other type UFO sightings and everything like that too, the Men in Black make an appearance. Do you know of anything related to this creature Van Meter where maybe Men in Black showed up?
That's a good question, and no, I don't, unfortunately. I don't have any stories, any data that reveal that Men in Black would have made their appearance, and if they would have, that would have even been more telling, because it's pre-CIA, it's pre, those types of conspiracies, where it's a misinformation or accurate information bundled as a misinformation. It's all very confusing. But no reports of Men in Black, but you're right, with Mothman in West Virginia, definitely had that come through,
Okay.
It's a good point.
All right. Well, thank you for your time then.
No problem. Appreciate it. Thanks for
good
coming
luck
out.
and stay safe on all of your endeavors.
Thanks, you too. Yes.
All right. So I'll start introducing myself. Merritt Klein's Paranormal Endeavors, and doing a little bit about the sighting of this mysterious creature. And you're one of the authors of the book, and you're here talking about that and taking some questions. I have a few more for you, but real quick, could you kind of set it up for who you are and when you started the project for the book and how you found out about the creature?
My name's Kevin Nelson, and we first encountered the story about the Van Meter visitor in a newspaper article from the time, which is about 100 years ago. The incident happened in 1903, And the newspaper article was intriguing enough because it was kind of out of the ordinary. We hadn't encountered anything quite like that before. And so we thought it warranted some more investigation. So we came out to Van Meter to see if we could find anything more about it. And not really expecting much because this had, been 100 years ago. But we went through the archives and actually managed to find out a lot more things about it. Found more articles. We found more eyewitness accounts. And so from there on, we kind of started building upon the story and realizing we had something more than just a snippet in time, something worth exploring. So again, more digging, more research, and we realized that, hey, you might be able to make a book out of this. There's a lot more here than we expected, which isn't always the case. It's usually not. So we're pretty happy to find, a lot more information about it. So we started working on it and kind of combining theories together, like what could this thing have been? Was it some kind of mysterious animal that hadn't been seen before? Was it more paranormal in nature? It was so bizarre that it even had some kind of UFO aspects to it as far as being an alien. So we kind of entertain all those possibilities throughout the book. And before we're done, we had a book that was well over 200 pages. So that's kind of where we went from there.
And it was 5 Days of Terror is what it was called on there. So literally, it just came, and then for less than a week, it just then it disappeared after 5 days.
That's exactly right. It was 5 nights. It started out as just kind of a light on the rooftops that people mistook for robbers, and the person that saw it mentioned it to people in town the next day, and people kind of blew it off. No big deal. And by the next night, the next witness got a better look at it. It basically confronted him in the street. It was this 8-foot tall winged creature, kind of humanoid with a beak, and he fired shots at it, which passed right through it, and pretty much kind of freaked out and ran back inside, panicked, and told people about it the next day. People thought he was kind of crazy, but people were starting to get on edge at this point. And the next 3 nights, it just got more and more visible. It appeared to more people and basically got the whole town in a panic by this point. And by the 5th night, people figured out that it was coming from an old abandoned mine on the edge of town, and they followed it back there, and with the intent of killing it or stopping it, even though it never really attacked anyone. I mean, it was threatening, I guess, but it never really hurt anyone. But, they were freaked out, and so they followed it back to the mine with the intent to kill it or bury it in the mine, and they did, and they were firing gunshots at it. A whole mob basically came for it, just like out of a horror movie. And the creature went back into the mine, and it was never seen again. The newspaper reports indicate that somehow they closed off the mine after the creature had gone back down, but they don't say how, so we don't know if they dynamited the entrance or if they barricaded it. We don't know.
Yeah, and in present times, a lot of those old mines, and I know it's made news quite a bit, but sinkholes popping up and whatnot, sometimes new discoveries come only at that time, so we might not know certain things about what's underground and whatnot until that happens, or a new owner of the land comes along and opens it up.
Exactly. It's a big mine down there. It went over 200 and some feet deep, so a lot of it's probably still there.
And being in the paranormal research field, what we do also, we've noticed trends. I know you guys noticed trends in what you guys are talking about too, but we've noticed aspects of where an entity or an energy is I guess, hiding out in a location that isn't used as much, like a crawl space, a cellar, an attic, things like that. And that kind of popped out at me when you said abandoned mine. So it's kind of like, give me my space. I'm just trying to live here, especially with, and I was talking to the other guy about this too, is that might be some compassion with it in a way. The creature might just be wanting to live there, live its own life, whatnot, with no harm or anything, but unfortunately, humanity is just afraid of the unknown, and so we start attacking pitchforks, as you say, guns and torches, and it actually didn't mean any harm. So it's interesting.
I mean, that's a good possibility. I mean, if it's an animal, even, chances are it would want to stay away from man, as best as it can. But maybe its curiosity got the better of it for a few nights, or maybe it was just kind of foraging out further, looking for food. We don't really know.
Yeah. And there's possibilities it's linked to the Mothman, the famous Mothman out west or out east. And so, not saying it's the same one exactly, but that could be possible. It's moving into one location, staying there for a little bit, kind of like a nomad, you're staying here, and then it moves, find another abandoned mine, moves around, and it could be within the same family of a lot of those different reports, but it could be the same kind of phenomenon going on.
Right. One of the theories that I talk about in the book is basically the theory of it being some kind of interdimensional wildlife. You know, like in certain areas or portal zones where the veil is a little bit thinner, maybe this winged thing, whatever it is some kind of species of the next closest dimension that we're unaware of. And for whatever reason, maybe they pop through now and then, and we're kind of seeing the same species or genus or whatever it is, just in different places.
Exactly. And briefly talk about the differences, so the general audience can know this, but extraterrestrials and ultra-terrestrials.
Sure. Well, the basic definition between the two, extraterrestrials, are entities that are believed to come from outer space, but still within our realm, our reality, our two-dimensional or three-dimensional space that we exist in. But ultra-terrestrials come from within. They're something that kind of coexists within the same space as we do, but just kind of shifting through dimensions. So they're really, on a different Earth, just one dimension away or 2 dimensions away. Whereas, rather than being from Alpha Centauri, on the other side of the cosmos.
Okay. Yeah, very good information now. Well, thank you for your time then today.
Sure.
And
No problem.
Stick around tonight. So, all right. So go ahead and introduce yourself and how you came in contact with the other guys for the book.
Yeah, my name's Chad Lewis. I'm a researcher of the strange and unusual, and I've been researching with Noah and Kevin, the co-authors, for over a decade now. But we are planning a legend trip to Iowa to do all kinds of things. We're going to see the Black Angel of Death and the werewolf out on Terror Bridge. But that's when we stumbled across this creature report that originally said it was in Des Moines, and then we tracked it back here to Van Meter.
Okay. All right. So you have then how many other creatures like this one in Van Meter have you come across? Any that kind of fit similar profiles, like Mothman and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, there are several creatures that have some similarities. The Mothman, the Jersey Devil, Spring-Heeled Jack, and a few others that could fit. Even the Mad Gasser Mattoon with the memory erasing capabilities. But nothing that had the horn, the bright light, the ability to release some type of odor. So it had some similarities, but a lot of differences as well.
Okay. All right. And you're about then to take us on tour and kind of show us some of the history and the places, right?
Yes, it's 110 years later, and we're going to walk in the footsteps of the residents of Van Meter, much like they did back in 1903, although by looking around, we'll probably have a little less firepower than they had back then.
Yeah. Look forward to that then, so let's get going.
All right, great.
Very interesting. Okay. All right, so that was a very good tour that you gave us, very informational as well, and I had only heard about this creature probably within the last year or so, and that was just a random message that came to us about it, and I was wanting to get out here and do this, so it was good. So thank you again for your time.
Hey, thank you. We all survived.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So far.
Pretty sure so far.
We're not home yet, but yeah. Great.
All right, thanks.
After you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Rising the town. But not everyone was convinced that it was a monster. And in fact, the local banker, Clarence Dunn, who everyone called Pete Dunn, run if you see Pete Dunn is what the kids used to say. He owned the bank, or he was the bank manager here, and he thought it was nothing more than burglars still. Even though Dr. Alcott had seen it, he thought it was a burglar. So he went down to the bank that night, and he was going to protect the town's money from this burglar. And we're going to go into the building, which was the old bank. You can get a feel of where he would have been sleeping when the events took place, which we'll get to. We have a...
Yep, got it.
So the best way to do this, maybe do a group of like a bunch at a time and loop back out.
Sure.
I know.
Or maybe get everyone in.
We single file.
Real quick, could you explain, so what was this building we're going into now?
Well, the connection is the
Van Meter visitor was sighted outside of the bank in 1903, and this is the original vault, is what we were told, from 1903, and that was Clarence Dunn, or Peter as his friends knew him, was awoken as he was kind of standing guard at the bank, and actually shot out the window with his gun, shot out the window in the sash when he saw the visitor, the light, whatever it was outside. This is the original bank vault from that time.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, it's like it's like
He was in the back of the bank, and he was protecting the money from what he thought was an intruder. And a bright light woke him up, and then he heard the sound of somebody strangling, and this light was shining in so bright that he thought it was searching for someone or something. And behind the light he could see a form. He was so distraught that he grabbed his shotgun, which he had buckshot loaded in it, blasted out the front window of the bank, and then went and hid in the back until morning. And in the morning he went outside thinking there would be a dead body or a burglar, and we're going to go outside. We'll see what he found. But take a look in the bank vault, or you'll get a feel of what it would have been like at least back in '03.
What is the? I wonder if the cards from that. Oh, that's is that the vault where they hid all the money?
That's the money, yeah, it was a long time ago. Vaults are bigger these days.
Oh, do you need a picture? Sorry.
So go ahead. You're way more important to me.
Get another shot of that rainbow. All families matter. We'll post that on the rainbow family site.
Any K2s? Jackie's running our K2 briefly to see if we get anything in these areas.
Imagine the bank window's been shot out with his shotgun. He's hiding in the back because he's terrified. No body parts, no feathers, no fur, nothing. He thought he was imagining the whole thing. So giant three-toed tracks were in the ground that he could see circling the building. He actually took a plaster cast of this giant three-toed footprint, at least one of them, but we don't know what happened to that plaster cast. I always like to say it might be in someone's attic right now, just sitting there, or in the basement, this giant footprint. So he had some evidence. So that was Wednesday night. By now, the entire town was keeping every light on that they could. They were terrified of this creature, but it was about to get worse for them. Let's head down this way to where Ovi White used to have his hardware store. Slow up here because we're going to use this telephone pole as a reference. Ovi White had a hardware store. He was the business manager, and like most business managers, he also slept upstairs. And it was Thursday night about 1 a.m., same time every night this creature appeared, when Ovi White was awoke by the sounds of rasp, like two files, big files being rubbed together. He looked out his window, couldn't see anything, waited about 15 seconds for his eyes to adjust, and then noticed on the telephone pole in town, which obviously that's not the same one, he noticed within 15 feet of him, the giant bat was sitting there almost as though it was sleeping. He waited for his eyes to adjust a little bit more, took deliberate aim at this creature and shot at it. But instead of killing the creature, he said it just woke the creature up, and the creature shined a beam of light on him and released some type of odor where Ovi White could not remember anything else of the evening. But luckily Ovi White's gunshot did awake Sidney Gregg, who was on the other side of the street, sleeping. He looked out his window just in time to see the creature descending the telephone pole using its beak like some type of parrot. He said when it got to the ground, it stood erect, over 8 feet tall, and it spread its giant bat-like wings. And it was sitting there crouching when all of a sudden the fast mail came through town, which was the train. It came speeding through town a little after 1 a.m., and the creature was spooked by this train, got down on all fours and started hopping like a kangaroo right down the street here as it flew off for what they thought was the old abandoned coal mine, which is where we're going to go next. So if you want to head that way, just letting it go, and then it's a lot to dig through, but...
Yep, absolutely.
So what are your thoughts here about it being, you know, coming up on 1 a.m. shortly, and it being, you know, to the I guess like 110 years to the date?
Amazing. Just walking down the street knowing that the town was walking and doing the same thing. They were going out to the coal mine. Obviously they were a little more frightened than we are tonight, even though it does have an eeriness to it. But just reliving history, it's not often you can do that. You know, they walked this route to get to the old coal mine, and I had to think that in 1903 there was no one to call for backup.
No.
There wasn't. You couldn't call the police, call in the National Guard. You were the town's savior. So a lot of the men had their weapons out, and they felt responsible for saving the community, and against something that seemed to be impervious to weapons. That there was already several gunshots on it, several nights. They had to have known that it would do them no good, but yet what other choice did they have? So I think this is just great, especially on the anniversary, that if these things still are here, who knows? Maybe this is their time of year. They love to come out.
Yeah.
But you get a sense of what it would have been like, because Van Meter back then was just a little bit bigger than it is now.
Yeah.
So you still have the same feel.
Probably a little eerie, kind of coming retracing the steps and coming back through here. Just as, you know, if you put yourself in that imagination of going back, rewinding over a century ago, and just, you can, you know, that's what I do. I daydream all, you know, and get in a deep fantasy about that.
Like, I imagine some people were on horseback, some were walking.
Is this the way to where the gates are, or?
No, it's up and then over.
It's up and then over?
Yeah.
But yeah, I can. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
What do you think?
It's interesting. No, just like energy. Like,
I'm glad you
can
came.
feel, yes, I'm very glad I came. But like, you can feel like the theory that maybe it wasn't here to like cause harm. It backs it up with everything.
That's what I was thinking.
Like the energy and the positivity and the just emotion.
Creature was sighted. It was now Friday night into Saturday morning. The town thought that these creatures were flying in and out of the old abandoned coal mine. At the time, the coal mine was shut down, but the brick and tile factory was still in operation. So there were dozens of men working 24 hours a day in shifts out here. So when they decided that the creatures were coming from the old mine, they decided they were going to play guard, and dozens of them guarded the place. And about 1 a.m., they saw the creature fly out of the mine, and the newspaper reported that it sounded like Satan and a regiment of imps were coming up from hell ready to do battle. And the creature flew off. Where it went, nobody knows. It wasn't reported in the town of Van Meter that night. But an entire posse of dozens of men surrounded the mine, and just before daybreak, the creature came back, except now it was with a smaller one. The same looking bat-like creature, but much smaller than the big 8-foot one. Together, they were flying back to the mine when the posse unloaded all of their weapons on these creatures. But again, it had no effect on these monsters. They simply went into the mine and disappeared. Now, the newspaper reported that the town was in an uproar trying to figure out how they were going to kill these creatures or board up the mine so the creatures could not escape. Well, it's not that scary.
You're scared. I'm freaked out of it.
Yeah.
But I love it.
It is creepy out here. So they saw it right over there. Now, just like a great Hollywood movie script, that's where the story ends. We don't know what the town did, but the mine itself was 300 feet deep. It had miles of tunnels. They had teams of mules working down there. This was a huge place. Many people believe that the creature had other entrances and exits that it could use. Many people in Van Meter thought that the creature was something that was dug up in the mine, something that was down there that shouldn't have been freed. But as far as we know, the creature was never seen from again, at least in Van Meter. Although, many of you probably know the brick and tile factory has a reputation of being haunted. Many people come out here to what remains of the old buildings and they hear bricks being thrown about. They see shadowy figures. Is it possible that it's still the visitor type beast out here or something altogether different? Is this a paranormal hotspot or something different? I'll leave it up to you to decide. So we're going to walk back to town much like the people of Van Meter did in 03, 110 years ago. No closer to solving the mystery than they were. We have no idea what they did when they got back into town, but I can tell you you're welcome to go to Fat Randy's and try their visitor drink, which may, yeah, you're a little young. It may help you see the visitor, but as we walk back, keep in mind that in 1903, not only did the town believe there was a bat-like creature in the mine here, over in the field, but also a giant serpent-like creature in the Raccoon River. So as we walk by, you may want to look on each side to guard yourself from the visitor and the sea serpent that was said to attack people as well. So we'll walk back into town and we can sum up the mystery when we get there. And I'll go in the back to make sure you all make it.
Here's close so you can get a frame of reference. To your right, from where you're pointing.
Yeah, it's not helping too much. It's very dark, but okay.
Back in here?
The brick and tile, you can see that, like the white building there.
That one there?
Nope, to the left, way down there. You see that building?
Oh, with the lights on?
Yep.
Okay.
Directly to the right of that. This
behind these trees here.
The first building you were pointing to kind of obscures the vision of them.
Oh, okay, but
and
back in there, okay.
There's a couple buildings, some bigger ones and smaller, but they're all in a state of disrepair. They're all falling down. I'm surprised that they don't just knock them over, but...
And I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Who owns it? Who would you have to get permission from to investigate there?
Yeah, that's the trouble. Local farmer, and I can give you that information of him. He's an old timer that he has no time for any of the supernatural or paranormal. And when we first got a tour of it, he was open and he said when he was a kid, him and his cousins were always afraid of that area by the mine, although they had no idea why. They just something about it. And again, he was this no-nonsense Iowa farmer.
Right.
Seen everything, done everything. But apparently they had troubles, and we can walk and I'll tell you. They had troubles on this road. The reason why there's a gate there is because it's city property, but it dead ends down there for decades. They would have people coming here dumping like refrigerators and all that stuff. So he's upset about it.
The fellow that owns the property back here. Okay.
And he doesn't live here.
Okay.
He lives in Winterset.
And in a moment,
that's when I started. Right. So we called Jolena, the librarian, and said, "We're coming down. Have you ever heard of this?" And she said, "Yeah, I heard of it." She's not a local at the time. She was not a native, but she had been here for several dozen years. And she said, "Yeah, the stories continued on. In fact, people still think it's haunted out there."
Wow.
So we decided to come here, and as you can see, it's a small town. They had no historical society, no records whatsoever of any of this. So digging up the people and their background was very difficult.
I imagine it would be. And when do you think it was that you stumbled onto, or it occurred to you that this was more than just a hoax or a misidentification? Did it take you a lot of digging to figure that out, or did you kind of recognize it right away?
Well, when we got here and started digging through,
a little faster.
Digging through the witnesses and compiling their background, that I'm used to a lot of hoaxes back in that time period.
Okay. Yeah.
But the people that we're dealing with were the most prominent people in town.
Yeah, that
You
was
had
what I heard.
a doctor, you had the banker, you had prominent businessmen. One guy went on to become the mayor of Van Meter. The postmaster is the one who wrote the original article. So you had the most prominent men in Van Meter as witnesses.
That's incredible.
So then it started to dawn on me that this probably wasn't a hoax. If it was, these men weren't in on it. They were being hoaxed by
They were
something.
being hoaxed. Oh yeah.
So people said it was a joker or a practical joker or a robber. Now, myself, if I'm robbing or around and I'm starting to get shot at, by the third night of people blasting at me, I'm probably going to stop what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Plus, you can misidentify people as many things, but to misidentify them as an 8-foot bat is kind of hard.
That's
You know,
a stretch.
Even Robert Wadlow, who was the tallest man ever on record from Alton, Illinois, died at 8 feet 11 inches. So unless he was wandering around with giant bat wings floating from store to store,
You know, I'm guessing that fellow wasn't agile enough to climb a telephone pole.
could barely
and
walk.
And hop like a
Yeah.
kangaroo.
And the thing is that people say, well, maybe H.H. Phillips, who was the guy who wrote the article, the postmaster, made it all up. Well, if he did, he was about 70 years ahead of UFO research, that these bright lights, the missing memory, you know, the odor, the impervious to weapons, he was describing things that wouldn't come out in the field for another 60 years.
That's right.
So he should have quit his job at the postmaster and started writing science fiction.
Could have done Frank Herbert.
Yeah. So, but in the book, we address all these different ideas, that it was a hoax, that it was a practical joke, the misidentification. Maybe it was just a big crane or a California condor or something, that the town went into this mass hysteria. But I think we're left with more questions than answers. And in the beginning, I was a little thrown off by that we wanted to solve it, but yet, it adds some of the mystery that, like all good legends, it's not solved.
Right. But it's like with paranormal research these days, we look at knocking down as many debunkings as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go through so many different possibilities that it could be, and you're left with nothing, then it becomes outside the normal, which is paranormal.
Yes. So I always like hearing people's thoughts on what they think it is. Several people in Van Meter think now that it was a demon. Mm-hmm. And obviously if they're more religious, they're going to think it was a demon.
Right. Yeah.
Others, the local superintendent of the high school, Professor Martin, at the time, 1903, he said it was an antediluvian creature, a prehistoric beast. Again, that they dug up from the coal mine. Basically, they released it. That is something that shouldn't have been released. But I always say that it was very similar to the same exact creature that was seen as Mothman out in Point Pleasant, Virginia, or West Virginia there. In 67, 66, when these sightings were taking place out there. We have a story from the same time period, 1903, out in Utah, where a similar creature was seen for one night, but it was bigger. It was carrying a horse off in its mouth. It was so big.
Wow. When was that?
1903, same time period,
Same
about
time
a
period.
month before this one was.
But a similar description, only larger.
Yes.
Interesting. The way I see it is the visitor was just a figment of everybody's imagination.
Please tell us how you really feel, Clay. Okay, is it going?
Yeah.
Can you see us? Are we blurry?
Jackie and Clay need to get a little bit closer. There we go.
Almost like we like him or something, huh?
Yeah, kind of.
You can zoom out if you need to.
Oh,
Well, that was. Are we ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. So, you want to start? What are your thoughts here? You're glad you came?
I'm very glad I came. I had no idea of this before I came to this, and it was a real good glimpse into the past and how people viewed paranormal or strange occurrences. Let this noisy old car get by. That was just a strange occurrence. But yeah, it was fascinating. I love history anyway, and to hear it that graphically described was really kind of cool.
Yeah, it was, and also to get like the living history part of it, getting the tour and showing us the bank vault and showing us where the cave was and all that kind of stuff is good. Are you glad that
I want that building.
you want that building?
I want that building.
You want that bank vault is what you
Yes,
want.
I do, and the walls, so pretty.
We did have a K2 going with this whole time, but there wasn't anything that really.
No, there was no activity with it, but.
And I would like to have a shot at that brick foundry, that brick factory. I would love it if we could get in there and do some investigating in there. If we could try to work that out,
Would be
that
awesome.
neat.
And it would be cool if we were one of the first teams in recent time, because it sounds like whoever the owner is, just does not let people do that kind of thing. And good luck with that. It's kind of what it sounds like.
But I know somebody here. I have relatives whose kids go to school here, and I think that they might be able to hook us up with somebody locally that can get us through that door.
Yeah,
We're gonna give it a try.
Yep.
And like the energies out by the mine, it's just.
It's pretty
There is
interesting.
some. I picked some up, even though I was focusing on other things. I still picked up some.
It was not a positive, like for me, it was positive.
Yeah, there's nothing frightening back there.
No.
I didn't sense that either. No.
So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us tonight.
No problem, Eric. It was good.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
On to the next endeavor.
Okay.